Professor Attallah, it is a pleasure to meet you here in Armenia.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure as well.
You're participating as a scholar in the conference of Genocide Studies.
Correct.
That's taking place in Yerevan this year.
Yes.
So I would like you to speak just a little bit briefly about your experience being here as a genocide scholar, and as I know, being in Armenia for the first time.
I've always been very excited growing up, knowing that I was Armenian and one day I would visit Armenia. It has been a very difficult and emotional journey for me. This is a pilgrimage more than for my academics. I find that I have to navigate two worlds because on the one hand, I'm here as an academic, a scholar. I have to be objective. On the other hand, my grandfather survived the genocide. He was never able to come back here. I'm the first in my family to come and to visit. And so for me, this is a journey not only for myself in terms of my career, my profession, but it's for my family. So it's been difficult, emotional. I don't know what I expected, but as the days progress, I find more and more a feeling of acceptance.
Yes.
But even from the beginning, there's always been love in my heart for Armenia, always.
I'm sure that's reciprocal.
I hope so. I don't know.
You have been teaching genocide in the United States.
Correct.
To American students.
Yes.
Can you draw a little bit about your experience of how particularly the Armenian genocide is perceived that way?
It's actually, it's not widely known.
Yeah.
And so when I first sought out to create my course, I teach a course called Narrating Genocide. The idea was to make it a comparative analysis, to look at various genocides of the 20th century, but use the Armenian genocide as a case study. Because as we found out, Hitler, he recognized the Armenian genocide as a lack of recognition in his pursuit. And so understanding not only the Armenian genocide, but the denial of the Armenian genocide, it's a critical component to discussing the following genocides that have taken place and the potential for genocides to be taking place in the future. We know that there are mass atrocities taking place right now in Syria. There's many places. So for the students to come into the course, generally, I would say every person knows of the Holocaust, but they do not know of the Armenian genocide. And I have found it's been very interesting. My class has, the attendance is full. There's a waiting list to take the course. And I was quite shocked because we're talking about genocide. It's an elective course for students to take. It's, on a Monday in the evening. And I thought, who wants to come and listen? For me, I'm passionate, but for students who don't know, it can be very depressing, and so I think that's why the narratives, the personal narratives, are so critical to teaching a course like that, the personal experiences to share with the students. At the end of the course, my students feel empowered. I even had students who told me that they were going to call the White House and advocate on behalf of the Armenian genocide. These are students who before coming to the course, they never knew what the Armenian genocide was.
Do you think the fact that this year was the 100th anniversary of the Armenian genocide and a lot of events took place worldwide, including in the US, also some other notable events like the Pope's message, do you think that had a strong impact on the way the Armenian genocide issue is perceived in the US?
Yes, definitely. I think...
How did you feel the difference?
For me, the difference is that there's more recognition. People are asking more questions. It's, when you hear, people are going to ask questions when there's controversy, right? So when they hear there's controversy, they want to know what's taking place. And then they learn about the Armenian genocide. Thousands and thousands of people gathered, nationwide to commemorate the Armenian genocide. At our university, we had a commemoration as well. We had days following up where there were discussions. We had individuals who traveled from hours away just to come to our university to watch a documentary on the Armenian genocide, to hear me speak about the Armenian genocide. Amazing.
And them being not Armenians as well.
Some were Armenians, yes, and others were not Armenians. Yes. Our university is more in a rural area, and so that even makes it more significant that they were willing to travel such a long distance. Even individuals who maybe their cousin or their friend growing up was Armenian, and they saw that we were putting on this event. We had traditional Armenian food. We had professional musicians come to play traditional Armenian music. It was amazing.
You have done your master's
Yes.
thesis, master's thesis on the Armenian genocide, and particularly focusing on the issue of denial.
Yes.
Can you share your findings, or maybe say it in the framework of the question? What is it that makes Turkey persist the denial, and how we can fight back?
I think for me there were multiple things that occurred while I was in the pursuit of my research. A very significant moment was when Ervan Dink was assassinated in January of 2007. In March of 2007, I had issues with some of my research. I contacted a well-known website. They had survivor testimony. I asked them for information. Their website was hacked by a Turkish nationalist group. They had all my information. I was then contacted by this group, and it was an emotional experience. Some of my research was lost. It's very complicated. We contacted the FBI because there were threats against myself, and I took it
real threats.
Real threats in that they knew my address, they knew my phone number, they knew my name. I was very emotional at that point. I was trying to finish my thesis, and let me share a significant moment. One of my mentors is Samuel Oliner. He's a survivor of the Holocaust. He is a professor emeritus of sociology. He writes on altruism and compassion. And when this all happened, I went to him and I said, Sam, I don't think I can continue this. It was too emotional for me. I was young, I was in my early 20s. These individuals I didn't know. I was just someone who I thought, I'm writing about something that is personal to me, but also important to be known. Why would across the world someone contact me? And he said to me, I said, I don't want to do this. And he said to me very sternly, you have to do this. They want you to stop. They want to silence you. When a survivor of the Holocaust tells you, get it together, you get it together. And so I thought, I have to do this because this wasn't just for me. This wasn't just to get a degree. This was for my father. This was for my grandfather and for Sam. He survived the Holocaust. He put so much effort into my research, into mentoring me. And I did it. I finished. And for me, that experience shed light on why the denial is so important to attack. This is the reason. I was just someone in a rural area in Northern California, and I'm receiving threats by a Turkish nationalist group because I want to bring attention to the Armenian genocide. So we see multiple levels of denial, right? We see it on the official level as official policy. We see it interpersonal relationships, but we also see it in a sense of trying to squash or to quell the freedom of expression. And for me, it was to take that instance and then you juxtapose it with the United States staying silent.
Right.
When they are staying silent, it's as if this personal attack against me, they're turning their backs. So I made that personal connection and I thought, even more so, I have to bring attention to this. And I was very critical in my paper about the need to recognize the Armenian genocide, that the United States is 100% complicit in this denial. Because when we choose to do nothing, that's still an action, right? So we can't say, oh, leave it up to the historians. The historians are there. The historians have said what is happening. The pictures are there. The documentation is there.
So have the scholars.
Exactly. Even scholars like Fatima Mujgocek, Taner Hakim, like these are Turkish historians, Turkish scholars who are saying this happened. We need to recognize it. So for me, there was never really a question after that incident. I was very much so motivated to finish. I did take time away from my PhD because it was a very emotional experience for me.
We can say that many scholars have actually gone through the story that you have just told, probably,
yes,
even though they are not telling about it.
Exactly. And it's interesting because for me, I don't necessarily share personal information. I'm a private person because I have a public persona. So when I teach. I try to keep my personal life personal, and I try to be as objective when teaching. But I find that sharing that story in particular with my students allows them to see the reality of the situation. My students are in their 20s, late teens. Their knowledge of the Armenian genocide is something of the past, as if it is no longer relevant. But the denial, right? The denial is the continuation of genocide. Yes. So if denial is still taking place and people are being not just prosecuted but persecuted for speaking the truth, that's an extension of it. It's reality. It's right now.
Yes, so this is one of the factors why the genocide denial is important today and the genocide recognition is important today.
Yes.
What other factors would you like to highlight in terms of now?
I think, I look at the work that Rabina Perumian is doing on identity and kind of the looking at the psychological effects of this trauma and the denial on the second generation, the third generation. The denial is affecting Armenians, and not just Armenians, but others that had relationship to it. Even descendants of the perpetrators are going through a psychological, emotional experience that we don't talk about. We hold it in. And so I think it's important to acknowledge the denial, because there's also the emotional component and the physical component, the soul.
Yes, I see. And one sentence could you say about the program of the Genocide Centennial that was presented at the conference the other day?
Which one? With the president?
The committee of the Genocide Centennial events that has been formed in Armenia has been doing a lot of work. And what is your impression of that?
When I walk down the street in Armenia and I see the commemorative signs, I can't explain the feeling. There's no words really. They're doing an amazing job, because you notice we have the conference taking place. Let me give you one quick story. I had a very emotional experience. I felt very much as an outsider for the first few days that I was here. Very emotional. I sat in a park. I don't even know what park it was. And I cried, because I wanted that experience to be a positive one. And then I decided I'm going to take the metro. I don't know the metro at all. So I figured out the metro. I felt very empowered. I took the metro and I go down the escalator and I see it's all in Armenian. And even that, I don't read Armenian. I thought, it's a journey. I will take it. And what I was so moved by were the personal stories within the metro of the survivors. And I will tell you, in that moment, I felt, this is why I'm here. It changed me, because I didn't know if I wanted to stay. I felt hurt, a pain that I can't really explain. But when I saw that, I'm here for more than just me, right? I wrote in the genocide book when I went to the memorial for my grandfather, I came for you, I stayed for us.
Oh, that's an interesting statement to make.
Yeah.
Very powerful. Well,
thank you.
Thank you for the work that you've been doing, and thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it greatly. Thank you.